Welcome to today's GM Tips. I'm your host, Satine Phoenix, co-creator of Maze Arcana and a dungeon master on Fury's Reach. When I was a kid, RPGs were played theater of the mind style. Now, in 2017, there's lots of ways to engage your players, giving them a clearer picture of what they're getting themselves into. Let's start with maps and minis. Basically, it's good to use these because many of the things you do in role-playing games depend on your speed or the distance you can travel within a 6-second span of time and proximity to a creature or allies. Being able to visually track these spatial relations help with the flow of the encounter and clear confusion to forgotten choices. I can clearly have moved 6 spaces where everyone can see and not challenge my memory. Let's look at the different kinds of maps. So I'm just gonna nerd out right now. The cool thing about this kind of map is you can go to an office supplies store and pick up these grid pieces of paper, and like graph paper, you can make your maps, but you can make them really big using Sharpies, pencils, whatever. They can be really intricate, or they can be as simple as these fun little colored Sharpie. If you want to get a little more hardcore, you can use these awesome vinyl battle mats. You use a wet erase marker, it comes off with water, you can draw it as you go, so as you're telling the story, as more monsters come out or as the encounter reveals more areas, you can draw them on the spot so that players aren't looking ahead to the different locations in, say, your dungeon or a house. The cool thing about this is one side is all grid and the other side is hex. As you can see here, those are for different types of games. So the next level of map making, they have these really cool things called dungeon tiles. You can get them on Amazon, but you can actually pre-make your maps on these panels like puzzle pieces, and as your adventurers are exploring, you just tag on the corresponding pre-made map or hallway that you have. And just like the vinyl, you use wet erase markers. But you can also get these awesome sculpted pieces that have the grid on them, but they're 3D, and these are called Dwarven Forge. And they come in dungeon tiles, they come in outdoor themes, they're amazing. So here's the little door and staircase, and you can put minis on them, and you can build them up in separate layers. They're really, really cool. Additionally, there are these really cool maps that people paint, and they're pretty awesome. They come in all sorts of indoor, outdoor. I just made a sci-fi lab and a campground. It was really cool. But this one is a ship. You can either use it as an airship or a pirate ship, but it's to scale, so you can put your minis on here and play on top of the deck. Also, it's very slick. You can use a wet erase marker to mark different areas or draw on whatever you want to draw. So if you don't want to buy the Dwarven Forge and you kind of want to just do it yourself, you can 3D print your locations. These are made by my friend Daryl, who makes a lot of set pieces for Maze Arcana, and he actually had a bunch of Girl Scouts paint these as part of their badge project. These are really fun. You can take the tops off. There's an entire church, and the level of detail that you can put into these is pretty incredible. And you can go to a hobby shop and buy pieces like these trees or these grass pieces, and as your adventurers wander in the forest, you can maneuver them on the spot and just change the forest as they're going down the paths. So real quick, we'll go over some minis. I have these minis from WizKids that are pre-painted. They're really cool. You can buy them in packages of a couple or in these blind boxes that are really fun to open. And inside usually is a big piece, a medium piece, and some smaller pieces. And they come apart and are pretty cool. Okay, I guess they're not coming apart. Ta-da! So this one's neat. It has like, the details on this are pretty awesome. It saves you time when you can just buy them pre-painted. Or you can buy ones that are just plain, and then you can spend a lot of time painting them yourself, which is cool. You can customize them, you can cut off pieces and glue them together. They're really fun. Or you can get these, and they're little stands that have monsters on them. And the reason why I like these are that they come in carryable sizes, which are pretty awesome. You can just go to an art store and buy these containers and hold a ton of minis, whereas in these types of containers, you can hold fewer minis. But it depends on the level of detail you want your players to experience. I could roll on about this, but instead, I've asked Jennifer Kretchmer to join me in showing you other ways to visually enhance the game with props. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Look at all this fun stuff that we have here.
So much stuff.
I would like to walk us through and show everybody what we brought, because this is like the best show and tell episode. So I have different kinds of treasure chests that you can put things in and give to your players. So this was actually made for me for my birthday by my friend Daniel Spellman, and he actually gave me dice for my birthday and put them in.
Awesome.
But he made this, and it's just cardboard, and then he lined it with duct tape, and it's this beautiful little box, and I just keep it on my shelf.
That's amazing.
There's a more elaborate one I got at Ross or something, and this is part of a game that my friend got me for my birthday, which they mail you things. It's like a surprise adventure that happens all throughout the year.
That's so cool.
It's really cool. So I got this statue from it, but it came in this box.
I think you could use a wine crate too.
Yeah, you could. So this actually came with all this stuff in it. And the cool thing about it is it was nailed in. So I had to really pry it open. I broke it. But it had stuff hidden in here. And I'm sure there's probably more things I haven't found within that. But other things that you can hide inside of things, this is from the 99-cent store. Easter.
Holidays are the best for getting things to use it for D&D. Just the absolute best.
So it's just amazing. You can fill it up with all sorts of stuff. One of the other things I do for players is I'll go to explain something, but I realize that I draw really fast. So for the Savage Nation game, I just drew a picture of the Druid Circle instead of trying to draw it on a grid or anything. So that was really fun. Also, I'll draw out artifacts that they find. And this one was to the Knoll that a teacher gave him. And he got a crystal shard necklace.
Nice.
And so I drew it on a piece of paper, and this really fast. It doesn't have to be overly detailed or anything.
That's a place too where you can use technology. A lot of the time, between sessions, I'll text my players information that they know that other players don't know, and it's a great way to have technology help, not hinder the game.
Yeah, it used to be passing notes, but I like that. That's actually really cool. Why don't you show us what you brought? Because you brought so many cool things.
Thanks. I love having tactile elements to my games. So for me personally, this is my Maze Arcana binder. I used Dave Lowe, who's a prop maker's technique for creepy old bookmaking. It's basically paper towels, Mod Podge, some cardboard, and then going over it with acrylic paints.
Awesome.
And then I added some glow-in-the-dark highlights and some clear coat on there. So
if it was dark, it would just totally glow Maze Arcana.
The logo would glow.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's really fun. I love to also engage my players by doing things like sending invitations. This was actually a Halloween invitation I sent out a few years ago, so I shipped these to all of my guests. And it's just, it's a 99-cent store skeleton. I aged some paper, I wrapped it up, I added a wax seal, and sent it off.
That's beautiful.
And that's a great way to make your games feel like an event, feel like something special. For a weekly game, it's not necessary, but if there's a big event in-game, it's always a really fun twist. I also am really into figurines. I love painting figurines. And this is kind of the progression from an unfinished figurine. They come like this, or now also in plastic. And then the center one has been primed with a gray primer. And then the figures on the side are painted or in progress.
That's cool. How long does it take for you to paint them?
They range. Usually they end up being about 20 hours for the really detailed ones.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
it's
a lot of
fun.
movies.
It is. It's a lot of movies. You get a lot of quality television in.
What else we got over here?
I love using lighting as a way to help set the scene, especially if I'm playing a game set in a Lovecraftian setting or something else creepy, Ravenloft. These are the Halloween, you can get them at Halloween. They're just little flame flicker bulbs. They give a really soft, creepy light, or you can always use candles, which one of my favorite tabletop RPGs is a game called 10 Candles, which uses a candle not only to set the mood, but also as a timer in-game.
That's classy.
And a candle snuffer, yeah.
Oh.
Yo. It's pretty great.
Cool.
I think having tangible things is a way to get your players to have accessibility at the gaming table. I think accessibility is a really important thing to do, and so people learn different ways. They think different ways. Some people learn by hearing, they're auditory learners. Some people learn by seeing, those are visual learners, and some people learn by physically doing, and that's a kinesthetic learner. I was playing at a game, I was running a game, one of my campaigns, and my players were very distracted. And so what I did is one night, once I realized this was happening, I showed up and I dumped a bunch of rubber bands on the table and I put a bunch of paper balls on the table and I set up a bunch of Tupperware at varying distances. And I told my players that they were in combat. And when the combat rolled around, I told them the way that they had to make their attacks that night was to shoot a rubber band ball. So once they saw the setup, the furthest cup was a crit, the second cup was a D8, the cup before that was a D6, and before that was a D4. So, and if you couldn't get it in any of the cups, and you can use different sizes of bowls and cups, then you missed. And then we would each take our turn, and all of a sudden my players were engaged again, and it was fantastic. And even just one session, one combat like that, completely changed the tone of the game and brought everybody back to life.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You're so smart.
use different mediums, find out how your players think, and then use things that help them. If they don't want to do numbers, come up with other ways that they can score things.
So you're pretty amazing. You made a puzzle for us, which unfortunately now you won't be able to have your players use.
No, I'm kind of bummed. I'm sorry, guys.
But why don't you walk us through it?
Absolutely. So the puzzle is a multi-step puzzle, and I would probably DM this over several sessions for a couple of reasons, which I'll get to. The first thing I would do is, after various encounters, players would get pieces of the puzzle. So they would get pieces in separate encounters, and they'd build them up, they'd hold on to them. Eventually, they assemble them into this. This shape actually will then be glued into 3 dimensions, and eventually they will come to find a pyramid. Once they've gotten to the 3D piece of the puzzle, they'll realize that they can finally read the message that was written on the pieces and was unintelligible the way it was. It will say something like, "Ask the cleric for the light." At which point, as a DM, you can produce this. Once they have this, they can discover that there is a hidden message written on the bottom.
Oh, that is so cool.
It tells them that they need to hold on to this. Yeah, it's really fun, and it's a great mechanic because now that that's in the game, your players are going to want to use their light. So I would probably then throw in a few other blacklight puzzles. And then the players tend to forget. Probably between sessions, they might forget about their blacklight. Eventually, they'd come to a point in the game where they reach a puzzle, and at which point I would produce all of these bottles, which I have 4 glass vials. I just bought them at a surplus store kind of thing, and I have a riddle. So the fun thing about this is they have a number of different ways that they could solve this puzzle. The first way is they can actually just use the riddle. The second way is they could do a detect poison. So the premise is the riddle establishes that one of the potions is a poison, and one of the potions will help them. So generally I would do that as a +1 to wisdom, and I've clued wisdom all throughout the poem. The final way that they could do it is if they remember, they can grab their blacklight pen, they'll find some notes on here.
Oh my goodness.
And once they've gotten those, that will tell them that they actually should use their blacklight pen on the potions. The really cool thing is one of these is vinegar, 2 of these are water or clear soda, and one of these is tonic. And tonic glows under a blacklight.
That's
so
coolest.
You tell your players they have to pick out which potion and take a sip. And if they can think to use their blacklight, they'll be able to identify the wisdom potion and get a really nice bonus.
That is so clever.
It's a fun way to draw people in.
You're so fun.
Thanks.
That's the end of our show today. Thank you for participating in our fun show and tell.
Thanks for having me.
Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at DreamWisp, and you can find me on Twitch as DreamWispJen.
Painting minis.
Painting minis, yes.
And as always, I'm Satine Phoenix. You can watch more of these super fun GM tips on Geek and Sundry and find us Sundays on Maze Arcana's Orphan Echo. And this summer, you can find me and Rudy dungeon mastering Fury's Reach on twitch.tv/D&D.
It's going to be awesome.
Jennifer, my
Yes.
darling, would you please GM us out of here?
Gladly. Triumphant with victory, you walk back outside and you realize for the first time in years you can hear the birds in the trees chirping. It's music you haven't heard in it feels like centuries. You return to town and the tavern is alive and there's a bard singing and they cheer your entry. And she turns to you and she says, "What song would you like to hear today?" And as she begins plucking, the story of a six-legged beast with tentacles and spikes, cat-like. You could swear that reality begins to flicker and shimmer and disappear, and you see two glowing red eyes.